notable notable
Moscow, April 7, 2026. Yesterday, Moscow did not feel like a city. By dusk, the Russian capital, a place of granite, steel, and stone, seemed to lose its shape beneath a tide of black meltwater and shattered ice. Streets vanished. Underpasses became drowned corridors. Courtyards filled like wells. Basements, garages, and ground floors were quietly overtaken as winter, instead of retreating, came back in liquid form and laid siege to the city it had ruled for months. This was no ordinary thaw. This was winter breaking open. For weeks, Moscow had carried the burden of accumulated snow, frozen runoff, and compacted ice. Then came the sudden rise in temperature, sharp, premature, merciless. The city did not have time to adjust. Water began moving all at once, rushing through channels clogged by debris and frozen residue, pushing into places built for endurance but not for speed. It spilled from drains, crept along curbs, slid beneath doors, and gathered in every low-lying corner like an invading force that moved exactly where the city was weakest. And suddenly, Moscow stern, magnificent, untouchable. Moscow looked mortal. The images were the kind that lodged themselves in the imagination. Cars stranded at unnatural angles in dark, rising water. Chunks of dirty ice drifting down flooded streets like broken gravestones. Apartment courtyards turned into shallow lakes of oil-sheened runoff. Yellow streetlights trembling across black pools, so still and deep, they seemed bottomless. People standing motionless like frothing, staring into streets that no longer looked like streets, but like something torn open. There was no single explosion of disaster. That was what made it worse. The horror came slowly, coldly, patiently. Water did not crash into Moscow. It entered it, it seeped, gathered, deepened. It turned the familiar sinister. A staircase leading underground became an entrance into darkness. A parking garage became a submerged vault. A basement became a chamber of mud, rust, and silence. The city's lower, half the hidden machinery of ordinary life was swallowed first. Experts have long understood this kind of event, but understanding it does not make it less unsettling. Moscow is designed to survive winter, but survival is not the same as adaptation. Its systems were built around predictable seasons, freeze, hold, thaw, drain, but climate instability has begun to break that sequence apart. Winters linger strangely. Thaws arrive too fast. The old rhythm is collapsing. Yesterday was not just a flood. It was a visible fracture in the logic the city has relied on for generations. In technical language, the cause was hydrological overload triggered by rapid thaw and inadequate drainage under extreme transitional conditions. In human language, the city could not swallow its own melting. That is the image that remains, a capital overwhelmed not by invasion, not by fire, not by storm alone, but by the collapse of its own frozen season, by water released too fast, by streets unable to breathe, by infrastructure built for resilience suddenly exposed as fragile when confronted by a climate no longer willing to behave. Emergency crews moved quickly. Pumps thundered through the night. Workers cleared drains, diverted flow, fought to keep roads open and critical spaces functional. Traffic slowed to a fearful crawl. Residents checked basements, moved belongings upward, watched the waterline inch closer. Moscow did what Moscow always does. It endured. But endurance is not invincibility. And yesterday, that distinction became impossible to ignore.
Stories to light.
What made the scene especially haunting was the contrast. Above the spreading flood stood the icons of the city towers, domes, facades, monuments, still imposing, still intact, still radiant with vision of permanence. Yet below them, daily life was drowning in cold runoff and broken ice. History stood elevated, the present filled with water. It was almost theatrical in its cruelty. A city associated with power was made to look helpless not through spectacular destruction, but through slow humiliation. Through soaked walls, flooded engines, submerged courtyards and stairwells leading nowhere safe. Through the quiet terror of seeing water appear where certainty used to be. As night deepened, Moscow became a city of reflections, street lamps wavering in floodwater, headlights fractured across moving black surfaces, silhouettes of people stepping carefully along edges as if the ground itself were no longer. The air carried the smell of wet concrete. Sirens echoed through the night. Struck water. Pumps groaned in the darkness. The city did not sleep. It listened to the sound of itself filling. By the morning of April 8th, the water had begun to retreat from some areas, but retreat is not erasure. What remained was enough. Mud, ruined lower floors, crippled vehicles, damaged utilities, and the unmistakable psychological stain of a city forced to witness its own vulnerability. This is the deeper significance of what happened. Yesterday's flooding in Moscow was not terrible. It destroyed everything. It was terrifying. A few degrees of heat, a few hours of release, a few failures in sequence. And suddenly, one of the world's most formidable capitals looked like a place trapped inside its own